Esposito Murray, President of the Committee for Economic Development of the Conference Board, and welcome to CED's Leadership in Challenging Times series, where we feature the outstanding business leaders who are recipients of CED's Distinguished Leadership Awards for Corporate Citizenship and Business Statesmanship. This year, CED is paying special tribute to business leaders who have helped our nation navigate the many challenges before us, including the pandemic, an economic recovery that provides equal opportunity for all Americans, and building a more civil and just society. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with our 2021 honoree, John W. Rogers, the co-CEO of Ariel Investments, the global value-based asset management firm he founded in 1983. Throughout his career, John's leadership at Ariel has exemplified the importance of corporate citizenship, and he has extended that leadership to the boardroom, where he is a member of the board of directors of McDonald's, Nike, and the New York Times Company. He has one of the longest track records in the business. His flagship fund, Ariel Fund, is the only mid-cap value fund in the US that dates back to 1986. And Ariel Investments is the nation's oldest African-American owned asset management firm. John has been highlighted alongside legendary investors Warren Buffett, Sir John Templeton, and Ben Graham. And it is our privilege to highlight his value-based approach to business leadership. Welcome, John. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
And John, we are unquestionably in challenging times, but we have been in crisis before. There's been civil unrest for social justice, 9/11, the Great Recession. So what do you see that's different about the current situation?
Well, I think what's different this time, it just seems as if right now our country is moving in the right direction. I really do believe so, especially in the corporate leadership roles. Melody Hobson, my co-CEO, talk often that we're hearing directly from CEOs, people calling us who've heard us speak somewhere, wanting to think about economic justice, maybe for the first time, to hire more people of color in leadership roles, have more diversity on their boards, to work with minority businesses in everything they do and how they spend their money. There is a real sea change. And I think that this one-year anniversary of George Floyd assassination, it's just had such a meaningful and lasting impact on our country.
So John, could you elaborate on economic justice a little bit more? You talk about the 3 Ps. What is the challenge, and what role, what actions do you believe corporations can and should be playing?
Well, I think we have a conference every year that we've done with Charles Tribbett from Russell Reynolds for the last 18 years. And now we have Deloitte as one of our partners. And at our conference, we bring together now, we've roughly 200 directors, primarily African-American and Latinx directors. We bring in CEOs from all different types of businesses, from David Rubenstein to Jamie Dimon, from Ken Chenault to Ursula Burns. It's been an extraordinarily diverse group of board leaders who've come to our event. We have great speakers who often are there to motivate people to be more outspoken and fighting for civil rights within the boardroom. So over the years, we've had Dr. King's best friend, Harry Belafonte. We've had Andy Young. We've had Reverend Jackson, Reverend Sharpton, Congressman Clyburn, and of course, Barack Obama. We've had these leaders who are there to remind directors they have a responsibility, again, to speak up and speak out, the way that the late Congressman John Lewis, who came to our conference one year, said that when you see something that's not right, that's not just, you have a moral responsibility to speak up and speak out and make good trouble. So we've asked all of our minority directors when they leave our conference each year to commit to measuring 3 Ps. One, corporate America is doing very well this year, is around philanthropy. Making sure that you're not just over-indexed to the local hospital or university or museum, but are thinking about civil rights organizations, economic justice organizations, and making sure you're spreading out those dollars. And we know many corporations are doing a lot more with historically Black colleges and other organizations like the National Urban League, et cetera. The second P is around people. But what we remind directors of is just not measuring people broadly across all categories, but making sure you're keeping track of the diversity in the C-suite, diversity on the management committee, and making sure that you're truly having African-American and Latinx directors at the highest levels of corporate America. And you as a director have the ability to change that paradigm by speaking out and holding management teams accountable for the diversity of their management teams. And then the third P is purchasing. It's all about making sure that you are spending money, not only in the traditional old-fashioned way of supplier diversity, but having an understanding that our economy has become a professional services, financial services, and technology-based economy. And that if we're going to make a difference in solving this wealth gap, you've got to spend money with companies in all aspects of your spend. Keep track of your spending by category and get rid of that term supplier diversity and include the term business diversity to signal that your company's open to doing business with minority firms in everything they do, from legal services to investment banking services to technology to whatever you spend money on. Keeping track of that spending by category is that third P.
And your focus on boards, I know Ursula Burns has also said that if it doesn't start at the board, it doesn't happen. Why the importance of the board of directors?
Well, everyone understands, boards have more and more and more impact ever since the crisis of Enron and Arthur Andersen and the like. Boards are more and more independent. Boards are more and more powerful. Boards are really leading decision-making in what's happening in the corporate world today. And you have ISS and others holding board members accountable. So having diverse board members just makes all the difference if you're trying to drive change in the corporate world. But my co-CEO Melody Hobson always talks about the fact that when you have someone when you have a diverse board member, they have to have the responsibility and understanding that they have to speak up. And it's something Sheryl Sandberg has actually said that she was actually incentivized to write Lean In when she saw Melody Hobson lean in for women and women of color on a board they were on together. So it just shows the impact that by speaking out, the differences you can make in corporate America.
And the role of the CEO, it's actually this year and over the past couple of months, particularly on the issue of voting rights, the role of the CEO is being debated sharply, but also on political PACs, money in politics. What role do you believe CEOs should be playing in the public square on social issues? How would you define the parameters around that role?
I think you have to pick your spots as a CEO. CEOs are not politicians, they're business leaders. But when there are issues at the heart of the American democracy, voting rights is at the heart of what makes our country great. And so when you have these issues that are just so profoundly important, and again, such an important part of what this country is built around, then I think it is a moral responsibility for CEOs to speak up and speak out and understand that they can make a difference and help lead us in the right directions. So again, they can't, they're not elected officials. They can't be commenting on every single issue that the country's facing. But these core issues of voting rights, I think was exactly the right thing to do. And it's really, truly going to make a difference, I think, as we go forward.
And so if we could turn to the debate on capitalism itself, as the founder of the first African-American money management firm in the country's history, how do you respond to the criticisms and the debate that's now actually happening about our economic system?
I was an economics major at Princeton. I believe in our capitalist system. I think as the world's greatest investor, Warren Buffett, says, our capitalist democracy is the best system ever invented. It's really, really the best ever. It's created so much wealth. Generation after generation lives much better than the generation before. So I'm a full-on believer that our system is one that's transforming lives in a very, very positive way. And I think it's unfortunate that very well-meaning people have gotten swept up in this idea that we need to challenge capitalism. I think it's wrong-headed. I think it's a temporary response to what happened during the 4 years of the Trump administration. And hopefully we'll get back to normal relatively soon. And I do think those that are speaking out against capitalism are a very relatively small minority of our overall population. So I'm hopeful there. And of course, it doesn't mean that there's things that should happen in our capitalist society to be better and more fair. Our wealth gap in our country's gotten larger and larger and more problematic. And there's some things that need to be done to as we know that it's gotten much, much worse than it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago, the gap between the wealthiest and the average American.
And actually turning to your leadership during, what has been really unprecedented turmoil, how would you describe the top challenges that you have actually faced? And what leadership lessons would you share, or can you share, to your co-business leaders as well as to all executives and employees in terms of leadership?
I think one of the things that we've learned from a leadership standpoint, I learned this playing basketball at Princeton. It transformed my life playing basketball for Coach Pete Carrill, who's in the Hall of Fame. He taught us that you think about your teammates first, and that great things happen to the team when everybody's out to help their teammates succeed. So I think we've been able to build a team that's lasted at Ariel because we share in the equity, we share in the decision making, and that's how you can attract someone like a Melody Hobson and have her stay for 30 years and help you run and build a company together. The other thing I would say is that we have many people who've been with the firm 20 years, 25, 30, over 30 years. And that continuity has helped us to navigate the ups and downs in a very volatile industry that I'm in, managing mutual funds and separate accounts for institutions and mutual funds for individuals. So going through the 08 and 09 crisis, which was devastating, going through the COVID crisis, which was devastating, the fact that, again, we had an experienced team that had been together before, that people felt extraordinarily valued. They felt like they were owners. They felt like they shared in the decision-making. All those things have kept us together, and it's been central to our leadership style that I think people want to stick with you when they know that everyone's thinking about the team first and helping their teammates succeed. Ultimately, that make loyal long-term employees who can help you navigate the most difficult of circumstances.
You've played a very important role in your community with regards to education, and education is one of the key issues that the trustees for the Committee for Economic Development have focused on traditionally throughout our history, and as part of our legacy in terms of education really being the way to level the playing field of opportunity. Can you share with us the initiatives that you've undertaken and why you selected the initiatives that you have as your priority for your community engagement?
Well, thank you. We've done several things, and a lot of it starts with the values that my father taught me. He was a Tuskegee Airman, flew over 100 missions, and every birthday and every Christmas after I was 12, he bought stocks for me instead of toys. And he wasn't wealthy. It would be $250 of Exxon, or $250 of our local utility, Commonwealth Edison. And he let me keep the dividends, and I learned about investing and fell in love with the markets. So as we had some success at Ariel, we decided that financial literacy would be our focus. We would try the best of our ability to make sure that young people, and especially young people of color, were exposed to the stock market. And when the former Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan, worked at Ariel when he was starting his career after he finished playing basketball in Australia, Arnie came and worked with us and headed up our Ariel Education Initiative. And our first big project, we created a small public school called the Ariel Community Academy, where we created this financial literacy curriculum that's really, really robust, and where every child understands that they're going to spend time at our offices learning how to pick stocks, how to do research. We're going to be going down to their school near the North Kenwood Oakland area, not far from the University of Chicago, teaching them about what the markets are all about and what it means to be in the investment industry as a potential career path for these young people. But the heart of it is that every first grade class gets a $20,000 class gift, and they watch us manage it for the first 6 years. And then in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the young people get to pick real stocks with real money. And again, trying to replicate my dad's story. And it's just been a wonderful thing to see these kids grow up. I've been on the McDonald's board for 18 years, and for a number of years, we would take the 40 kids every year to the McDonald's annual meeting, and the kids would get a chance to ask a question at the annual meeting, and then have lunch with Don Thompson, the CEO, and Andy McKenna, the chairman of the board, and learn about what it means to run a large public company. And we wanted the kids exposed. So the Ariel Community Academy has been one of our key things. Melody Hobson runs a program in Chicago called After School Matters, which is the largest after-school program in the world, actually. It was started by Maggie Daley, the former First Lady of the city of Chicago, who in her extraordinary leadership created this wonderful event where we pay young people to work in various jobs after school and learning about everything culturally to investing to what have you. So this educational effort after school fits very nicely with our financial literacy efforts. And then finally, our latest program that we're proud of, which is smaller, is we created a program at the University of Chicago for minority students to get paid internships to work in the investment offices of major endowments throughout the United States. And we've had 64 young people go through the program. And I think there's no better place to learn about the investment world than being inside of an endowment. And to think about a career path of endowment management is something that young people of color have had no exposure to often and never thought about.
Those are really fantastic programs, John. And you've mentioned two very important mentors in your life, your father and your coach. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the role models in your life and how they helped you to mold your leadership values.
Oh, wow. Well, I've been very, very lucky. I've had great parents. And my mom, her name was Jewel Lofentant, was the first African-American woman to graduate from the University of Chicago Law School in 1946. And she really taught me that anything is possible. She just was always there in my corner, and seeing her success and her leadership skills were really, really important. The other thing that, was important is that I got to meet, Chicago used to be the mecca for African-American entrepreneurship in this country. And we had these giant companies. John Johnson had created Johnson Publishing, which created Ebony and Jet Magazine, that many of you have heard of. They had a downtown office building on Michigan Avenue, more than a dozen stories. It was a fantastic role model for what an African-American entrepreneur could build in this country. And at the same time, there was a man named George Johnson, no relation to John, had built up this huge hair care company called Johnson Products, which was the first African-American company to ever be listed on a major stock exchange. And they had products called Afro Sheen and Ultra Sheen hair care products. He started Soul Train, the television show with Don Cornelius. Some of you are too young to remember that. He started Independence Bank, that became the largest Black bank in the country. And so what I learned from those two giants was that you could build a real business, do it in a world-class way as an African-American in this country, and not only create wealth for your family and your multi-generations, but also you'd be employing people. You could be involved in political empowerment for our community. You could be involved with philanthropy for our community. And they were just these folks that just had this enormous impact, because they just didn't just have their head down doing their jobs, but they showed that they cared for others at the same time. And those are extraordinarily valuable, very, very valuable for me to see as a young person.
Well, John, it's truly our privilege to be honoring you this year with our Distinguished Leadership Awards. And thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an inspiring and a directional talk for all of us. So thank you so much. And we look forward to continuing the conversation between now and October, and especially honoring you on October 25th at our awards celebration. So thank you, John, and congratulations again.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about this. I really appreciate you thinking of us.